Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to INE Live. I'm your host, Catherine Brown. Today is March 1st. That means, at least here in the United States, the weather is getting warmer. But this is also the first day of Women's History Month. And we have some really special ways to celebrate here at INE over the next month. One of those ways starts today here on INE Live. And we're thrilled to be kicking off Women's History Month with a very special Tech Tuesday focused on female pioneers in the tech industry, some of the challenges that women in the tech industry face, and maybe some strategies for overcoming those. We want to have a really candid, really open conversation today, and just talk to you, the students, the viewers, whether you're male or female, about the impact that women can have on the tech industry. So before we get started, as we do each time we stream here on INE Live, I want to let you know we are, of course, streaming live across social media platforms right now, including Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Be sure to like and subscribe and get those notifications turned on for whatever platform you're using so that you can stay in the loop and get notified when we do go live to hear the most relevant news, trainings, interviews, and information that we'll deliver to you at no cost, of course. We want you to get involved, talk to us, talk to others. We'd love to see the chat going, and we love to see you talking to each other. That is fantastic. It's why we do what we are doing here on INE. We want you to talk to us as well. Write us your questions. We have a team monitoring chat, so if you have a comment, feel free to drop it in there. If you have a question, go ahead and put a Q at the beginning so that as we are going through those questions, we can find them easily and get to as many as we can today. With that, I want to bring in our guest of honor. We are thrilled to welcome in today Alexandria San Miguel. Alex is based in New York City as Director of Government Risk and Compliance with Rent the Runway, one of my absolute all-time favorite companies, just as a side note. Prior to that, Alex was with Sony Music, has tons of experience in risk management, government compliance, and in particular, cybersecurity compliance. Alex is passionate about her work and especially about getting women and minorities involved in the tech industry. Alex, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Catherine. Super excited about being here today.
Awesome. Also with us today, Natasha Emanuel. Natasha, a familiar face here at INE. She is a content portfolio product manager at INE. Prior to joining us, she held project management roles in various industries, including education and tech, has a long history and brings a very, very interesting perspective in a lot of areas to both INE, to the tech industry, and to today's stream. So Natasha, so glad you are here with us today.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so Natasha, Alex, and I had a conversation earlier this week, and well, it's only Tuesday, so I guess that was only just yesterday, but really enjoyed our conversation. It was just a prep call for today's show, and one of the things that I think that the three of us both really took away from it is the three of us are coming at this from very different perspectives, right? You've got Alex, who works in what some may consider a more traditional tech role, like dealing intimately with cybersecurity and risk management, things like that. Natasha works for a technology company, right? Utilizing some of the technology, but really doing project management. And as for me personally, I come at this with a 20-year history in broadcast news, coming as a television anchor and reporter, not in the tech space at all, but am now considered a female in tech. And so we have a lot of different voices and a lot of different perspectives here. So, our conversation yesterday was really interesting, and I'm hoping to get that same bit out of it today. I wanted to start by Alex, and we can start with you. Just what's kind of your origin story? How did you get into tech, and what was it about the industry that drew you into it?
Sure. Well, I don't know if I have a very traditional, story. I never had a plan to get into tech. However, I've spent my whole career in it. When I went to college, I was studying finance, and I just always had a love for numbers and thought I'd be a businesswoman one day. I didn't really know what that meant, and so finance just felt safe. And in order to fulfill a math university core requirement, I took a programming class, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it. I switched over to computer science. I thought, that was going to be what I was going to do, that I was going to program video games, and that was going to be my future. And then I very smartly got an internship and realized very quickly that I was wrong. At that point in my college career, I couldn't really switch majors without, driving my parents to some sort of craze. And I decided, I was going to stick with it. The good thing was that I'd maintained a business minor. And therefore, I was graduating with a major in computer science and a business and a minor in business. And that became really attractive to the big fours of the world at that point. It was right after the Enron scam and everything that came out of that. And because I had a, sort of dual tech and business major, I ended up at one of the big fours doing IT controls and audits. And at that point, I didn't know what it meant, but it was a job. And so I went with it. And I've spent, my whole career since in the world of IT, risk, governance, and compliance. And about 6 years ago, I pivoted into cyber, which was just a natural progression, just given the world that we live in. And so that's my story. I don't think it's very traditional, but I have always been in a tech sort of function. And it's funny that you talk about like the different areas of tech because, there are so many different facets, and I hope we'll get into it a little bit more later. But, I live in a very sort of underrated, sort of unknown niche in tech because I'm not super, I'm not an engineer, but I speak with engineers every day. And so we can talk about a little bit more of that later. But that's my story.
Awesome. I'm still having flashbacks to Enron. Wait, that's a name that I haven't heard in a while. I remember it was a headline of every single news cycle every single day. And I was in the news at the time, so goodness, I remember covering that. Alex, thank you for sharing that. I think one of the things that makes you very interesting is that you don't have that traditional tech background. You come at this from a really interesting way and sort of navigating your way through, and definitely want to explore that a little bit more in this stream. Natasha, wanted to get your origin story as well, a little background on you and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so my story actually starts a very long time ago. As a young girl, I always thought, when I grew up, I wanted to be a surgeon. That was my first thought. And there were very few options for me as a child, or at least that I was aware of, for me in terms of a career. I had parents that were athletes, and they came into this world and went into education and did amazing things for themselves in a career, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to have a bigger impact in people's lives. And of all the careers I knew at this age, I was probably around 5 or 6. I just knew that, if I was a surgeon, I could fix people and help them, in some way. So naturally, I went into health sciences. And I think probably around my junior year of college, I realized that was not the way that I wanted to do it. And started going into exploring public health, and specifically the education side of public health, and working on behavioral change management. So that really kicked off my career in education and understanding how people can evolve with the right environments, with the right tools. And probably about midway through my career, I realized that I could use technology to advance that, personal mission of mine. So I started kind of dabbling on the back end of some things and had a lot of fun. And, I think that was really the pivot for me, the pivot point to really start to hone in on technology and understanding that I could have a bigger impact by creating something that was more meaningful for people and could actually help to shape their personal lives, their careers. And now here I am.
Well, we are certainly glad that you are here where you are. I love that everyone sort of has their own traditional story. As I alluded to, just for a little background on myself, I was in broadcasting, a news anchor and reporter for 20 years before completely switching careers, going into public relations and landing at INE, which is a tech company. And I know coming here, I really didn't have a tech background. So you're talking about three women coming at it from very different angles. All right, I'm going to take a moment here, because one of the things we do here on INE Live is we read a lot of comments, and the thing that's really important, right? To address the comments and read the comments. And I'm interested in your thoughts. I have no idea if this person is still watching. End of the line, Joel. But his comment, her, whatever, says, "When will this pandering stop?" I have no idea what the context of that is, but I want to bring that up to you because, quite frankly, when I read that, my first instinct is red hot. This is exactly what we're talking about here as women, and why it is difficult to be in tech, to be in the workforce in general. So, like I said, I don't have any other context on that comment. That's all it says. End of the line, Joel. When will this pandering stop? But I'm curious what your thoughts are. Alex and Natasha, both. Alex, we can start with you just on a comment like that, and whether you get hit with the feeling that addressing women in the workplace and being a woman in tech is pandering to something.
The haters are going to hate, Catherine. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. This is why we're here, unfortunately. And, I'm going to guess Joel's a man. But it's sad, it really just goes to show that we still have a ways to go. I mean, at this stage, we know they exist. We just got to sort of keep pushing forward, knowing that there's always going to be friction, unfortunately. It's just sort of the way it is. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. The good news is that we have people like us, on the forefront trying to change that narrative.
Is this something that you find yourself battling against, a perception that you as a woman aren't quite as equal in tech, as equal in the workplace? Is this something you find yourself confronting every day?
Yes, but not directly. I don't think that, people like Joel don't come out and say things like this, but I often find myself, explaining or re-explaining myself to, male counterparts who, might be presenting an idea that maybe I already just said, or I already sort of, walked through, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing the same idea thrown back at me as if it's brand new. And I don't think that people do this necessarily on purpose or maliciously. Men and women certainly have a different way of communicating. But yeah, I would say that, I often find myself in a room as the only woman where, I have to assert myself a bit more than my peers would, my male counterparts would. And a lot of that comes, also with experience and confidence, but certainly find myself, having to sort of, hear mansplaining and things being explained to me that probably wouldn't be explained if I wasn't, a woman. But, I come to a point now where, with some finesse, I sort of make it clear that I don't need certain types of explanations. And again, but that comes with, I think, experience and confidence. But yeah, certainly on a regular basis.
So I'm going to follow up on that. For anyone who's watching, who may be, a woman who may say, that sounds so familiar. Are there, like, how did you get to a point where you felt comfortable asserting yourself? I know it comes with experience, but what are some tactics for feeling more comfortable and feeling less, well, less just uncomfortable, I guess, asserting yourself when you're in those positions.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I think getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable is exactly it. You know, not being scared to just say something. And again, you know, in in a way that isn't combative or isn't necessarily you know, unprofessional, isn't kind, but just being able to say, no, wait a minute, isn't that what I just said? Let's talk about this. I think, again, it does come with time, but you won't get that until you do it a few times and you realize, you know, because like I said, most of the time I don't think it's malicious. And, you know, once you've got people's attention and you sort of highlight sort of what I've been saying, then I think people are more inclined to pay attention.
I love that phrase that you use, getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Um,
Right.
it's a phrase that I've actually used in the past in terms of one of my things. One of the hurdles that I've had to overcome in my life is like intense shyness, right? No one can believe that I was a TV reporter and anchor for 20 years, and as a teenager, I battled like intense shyness, and that was one thing I had to do really, was get very comfortable being uncomfortable and stepping out of that comfort zone, to
I still
overcome
struggle
that.
with that today, Catherine. I
Yeah.
mean, I certainly still struggle with that today. You know, I this isn't easy for me, but I realize that, you know, this is sort of where I want to be. And so in order for me to do this, I have to, you know, sort of fake it till I make it. And, you know, I totally get that and could so relate. But, you know, as women, we sort of sometimes just have to get out of our own way. I mean, the patriarchy exists, and, you know, as we saw today, there are people who don't really understand, and unfortunately thereby probably aren't supportive of this sort of thing. But we sort of just have to keep going.
Natasha, I want to bring you into this as well. Kind of, I don't want to dwell on that comment too much, but I do want to get your thoughts on it and how you feel in terms of, day to day. Do you feel like you're viewed as someone who is um, somehow playing the female card at times?
Hmm. I would say yes, absolutely yes. And it's interesting when you read that comment from the viewer. You know, the first thought was, okay, for me at least, was okay. Pause. How do you respond to this? Right? How do you respond to this in a way that's not threatening? That's not going to, make you out to be any number of the names that people choose to call women who are strong and aggressive and assertive. And, I think I see that in a lot of other females that are very successful and still going out there and still struggling and still second guessing themselves. But when they have to stand up in a room in front of other people and let their voice be heard. And I think that's the beginning of the problem, right? We've been conditioned to kind of think of ourselves of less than, and the playing field is very unfair because I don't anticipate that my male counterparts and people that I work with or people out there in the tech industry or any other industry are having those same questions. They're having those same thoughts because for them it's the workplace and the tech industry is a place for predominantly male professionals. To us, this is a new place that we're trying to enter into, right? Even if it has been a number of years, it's still an ongoing battle for us to make a place, for ourselves and be respected in the industry and be known and be recognized. So I'm a little bit, I guess I'm annoyed, just to be very frank, right? Because
that's a better word than I would have used.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed because we all have so much to offer, and I think women bring a different perspective. Period. Right? I don't know what it's like to be a man, a man can never know what it's like to be me, right? And I think that regardless of our opinions of someone's expertise, I think that we can just agree that we all have different perspectives, and nobody can tell you what you know or what you don't know to begin with, right? So from that I think just kind of thinking of that very single point, we have a voice to be heard, regardless of what your opinion is. So getting past that, just kind of thinking about like the types of experiences that I've had and seen in my environment. It's been, I think that there are a lot of things that are systemic. As Alexandra said, she's never had experiences where somebody overtly said, something to her that may have been offensive as a woman in a workplace. And I can't recall a single moment where I have either. But at the same time, I do see where things are not equal, right? Where, even if somebody doesn't mansplain an idea that I had or some type of, whatever it is, they may still be taken more seriously than me, or maybe given more opportunities for career growth, for salaries, for income. I mean, I've had conversations with people that I didn't personally work with, but friends that I knew that started working at a company and had a much higher offer rate, for their job simply. And I don't want to stand out there and judge, right? I don't know the whole story and I don't know their experience, but I've seen it far too many times where they're taken more seriously and they're given the benefit of the doubt, or they're given, better opportunities than women that have similar or even at times more advanced experience. So I think that it is a bit unfair. And I think that's really just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that we could go into here, but I think sometimes people who aren't in that position they're blind, right, to some of those biases, even the ones that they hold themselves. So it's easy to judge when you haven't had that experience yourself and been the person to have to struggle or to have to explain yourself over and over again, or kind of go above and beyond to be recognized.
So I believe both of you have kids, right? Natasha, I know you do. Alex, do you
I
have
do,
kids?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have one.
So as you were talking, Natasha, I was just reminded of a story, and this is a time when I felt like an absolute superhero. And I wonder if you ladies have had similar moments, but I remember after my son was born, I was working as a news reporter in New York City. We were going all over the place covering stories in every borough in New Jersey and Connecticut, and all over the place. And at least twice a day, I'm like in the back of a live truck going 100 miles an hour down the highway, pumping, right? Pumping so I could feed my kid. And then, times when I wasn't doing that, I was like carving out like 10, 15, 20 minutes here and there where I would run from doing a story and try to run into the bathroom and pump and then run back out and try to do everything that everyone else was doing. And of course, I'm competing with other women who aren't, haven't just had a baby, with other men, all this kind of stuff. And I remember, a few times I like just really nailed the story, right? I got an exclusive or got some like great piece of news first on the air or something. And I remember thinking like, wow, I am woman, hear me roar, because I have had like an hour and a half less in my day than all of you people, because I've been sitting up there in the bathroom dragging around like freezer bags full of milk. And in some cases, like, I wonder if you guys have ever had those like superhero moments where, yeah, it's tougher to be a woman. I think we can all agree, but sometimes it's like, wow, yes, I am.
Totally. 100%. I have those moments regularly. It is not easy. And I'm a single mom now too. So it's just me and my daughter in New York City, full-time job. She's 9 going on 42. And so it's like my hands are, full. My plate is full, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And, I think that us, especially when we become moms, are even better at our jobs because we just don't have the time to not be. We don't. Our time is so limited. And we're worried not just about our work, but we're worried about our children and their schoolwork and their doctor visits and their extracurriculars, and then our own lives. We're not just professionals, we're not just mothers, we're women. We have our own friends and our hobbies, and there's a lot to juggle. And not to say that dads aren't doing the same thing, but unfortunately the truth is that you know us women sort of get more scrutinized for having to be moms than and professionals than dads do in being professionals and having to juggle fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
I think you see that a lot on, we're in this Zoom world now where, Alex, I think it was you mentioning yesterday during our prep call, we're very intimately in everyone's home, right? We can see each other's family members, we can see each other's kids, and Natasha, I've met your gorgeous son in person. At least once, but I've seen him on Zoom, a number of times, and I know people have seen my kids crawling in and like coming in for a hug at the end of the day when they get home from school. So it is just particularly in these days, a little more, a little more overt that like we are parents, we are moms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. And, I'm also a single parent, and I think that unfortunately, there are a lot of single mothers, right? There are single parents, both single fathers and single mothers, but there's a higher percentage of single mothers, and they take on a lot more, especially when you live, you may not live near relatives, and you're, juggling certain things and taking your child to school or daycare or whatever it is, and you have to accomplish so much more within the same amount of time. That is a challenge that I think some people just don't realize, that women take on that extra burden. And even if you're not a single parent, I think a lot of times I've seen kids, they still prefer, the warm and comfort of their mother, even if the father is still standing there. So the mother still has to carry that load. And, but one of the things that I think makes me feel like a hero at the end of the day is if I can manage to get through maybe 70% of the things that I said I was going to do that day, and then still have time to have a meal with my son and go play with him after work. And I think those are the moments or the days that I feel like I've accomplished the most, to still make sure that I'm, making him a priority, putting him first, making sure that I give him my attention. And it's easy to miss that mark on a regular basis. It's like a regular, something that you have to work at every single day. And yeah, it's just, you get better at it, right? You have to be extremely forgiving, but it's a true struggle and a true challenge that I don't think, everyone has to go through.
You have to forgive yourself, right? You have to,
Oh, yeah.
you have to forgive yourself for not meeting that bar sometimes, because there's always
Yes.
days that we don't meet it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was just gonna
right,
say the same thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say the same thing to what Natasha said. You have to be kind with yourself. You have to forgive yourself because maybe we won't hit that 70% mark. Maybe it's a day where we hit 30%, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
The fact that you intended to hit 70 is a great thing, but it's impossible to do it all. And it wasn't, until my daughter's 9 now. It probably wasn't until more recently, actually, through the pandemic too, where I realized, it's okay. It's okay if I can't deliver everything perfectly 100% of the time. And I think us as women tend to sort of be really hard on ourselves in that regard, with or without children. We tend to be harder on ourselves than men do. Why that is, who knows? But just being kind with ourselves, I think, is really important, especially in these times.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point, Alex. Natasha, I couldn't tell if you were talking right there and wanted to weigh something in or.
Oh no, I'm just agreeing wholeheartedly. Yeah, we are hard on ourselves. And I hear it from, the woman in my personal life. Like, I try to surround myself with other women that are striving for something more in their lives, and that are being progressive and taking chances and being brave. And, that helps to encourage me every single day. I had a good friend of mine reach out to me earlier this morning, and I hadn't spoken to her in so long, but I can't imagine what my life would have been like if I didn't have people like her that were constantly speaking words of encouragement and, sharing that walk with me, even though hers might be different. But being able to say, hey, I didn't meet that bar, as Alex said, like today, right? And I'm feeling pretty crappy about myself, or, I'm feeling like I'm less than, or like I'm working hard at something and not really getting anywhere, and having somebody else there to remind us that, you know what, it's okay. You're doing a great job. You're making progress. Just to help you see yourself in a better light when you are just so accustomed to doubting yourself because, of the the things that society may have conditioned you to think, or even to believe about who you are, where you're supposed to be, what your place is in business, or in your personal life, in any type of social setting.
Yeah, and I think these are familiar challenges, right, in any industry,
Mm-hmm.
but perhaps particularly in such a male-dominated industry as tech.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a huge push underway from various organizations, whether they're primarily women or primarily men in some cases, or minority groups or whoever, trying to increase the number of women and minorities in tech. And there is that awareness out there that there is a disparity, and it needs to be addressed. But at least in my experience, coming over again from an industry that was not tech, to a tech industry, the difference was stark in wow, I went to this conference and didn't see another woman for like a day and a half,
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
okay, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I work for, as you said, Catherine, Rent the Runway. We went public late last year. The first company in history to go public with all female CEO, CFO, COO. The company is run by fierce women. There are a lot, it's a fashion company. It's a lot of women. However, when you look at the tech org, it doesn't paint the same picture, especially as you start moving up. And so we are one of those companies that are making a very, very concerted effort to recruit women, especially in the more senior roles. Because if we don't do it explicitly, then we're just going to continue being in the same situation that we have been. I didn't feel a lot of bias, or, I didn't feel, like men were, I was less than when I first started my career. I think because we were probably a bit more, maybe not 50-50, but there was a lot more female representation. It wasn't until I started moving up and progressing in my career, getting more senior, and being, one of the only or very few women in the room, that I started feeling that. And that's because we don't have representation at the top. In tech, there aren't a ton of CISOs or CTOs out there. There are some, of course, and I actually moved into security because the CISO at my last company convinced me to. I didn't know, I didn't realize all the different facets of security, and she sort of coached me and convinced me that my background in tech risk could totally be applied to cyber risk. And she was 100% right. And it was the best decision of my career. But it's interesting how that all really goes.
Yeah, I want to get back to the comments just for a moment because the comment that we addressed earlier was sort of um, putting voice to something that I think we as women oftentimes feel, but is rarely said directly to our faces. This is sort of the opposite direction. This is from Kyle, who comments in. Kyle, thanks for your comment. Men are watching too, and I'm taking notes. Um, and then says, you would be surprised how much of these same thoughts are experienced by men between men in the industry, considering how competitive they can be. My question to this, and again, Kyle, thank you for the question. Where I want to take this is, um, there are these people who think women are lesser or this or that, but I think there are so many more people who think women are just as fierce and just as competitive and just as equal, if not more so, whether it's in tech, whether it's out of tech, that sort of thing. So how important is it for these men who are champions of women to really step up and draw women into the conversation and sort of lean over, take their hand and say, hey, come here, stand on this
Mhm.
podium with me?
I'm so glad you said that, Catherine, because I feel like that's what makes a difference, right? We can have everybody in the room can agree that, women are just as equal and they bring something valuable to the table. But if no one's willing to step up and do something about it, then nothing changes. And that's the biggest challenge. We need people to, like you said, to reach a hand out, to give people opportunities, to be able to stand in the gap and help to promote, because at the end of the day, the reality is there are more, I mean, I don't want to say there are more, but our challenges are different. And like I said before, it's not an even playing field. So the more people that we have that are able to provide more opportunities to help to build, to give women more opportunities to grow their careers and to work in a tech field, expose them to new things, and the more, the further advanced we'll be able to get as a society.
Yeah, we just need allies.
Yeah.
We're not trying to be the only people in the room. We just want a seat at the table. That's it. And we need other men, our counterparts, to give us opportunities to shine, just like they do, their male friends and colleagues. We just need, support, on the projects that get all of the exposure. We need, we need our allies to call out when there are boys club microaggressions, and we know what those are. That's what we need. We need people to sort of, we can fight this battle, but if we've got allies, then we'll be that more effective.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to speak to women, girls, teenagers, college students, people who are considering getting into tech, right? Um, and thinking, well, is this going to be an uphill battle? This is something that I love. This is something I'm interested in, but do I really want to fight this fight? And maybe there's an easier or a less challenging path to get me where I want to go. Um, Alex, just starting with you, what advice do you have for women who are considering getting into tech or a STEM field, or to broaden it out, even just a male dominated field? What advice would you give them?
Just do it. Just do it. I mean, if that's what you
Yeah.
want to do, just go out and do it. For me, I was lucky enough to have like an internship that made it clear what I didn't want to do. And, networking got me into a role that, really ended up being like a perfect fit for me. And I've sort of just stayed in that sort of world since. But it was about, just trying something. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my degree, and I just kind of went out there and I did something and it proved it wasn't what I wanted to do. And it was through like networking and getting out there and like meeting people that, this other opportunity came. And ever since then, it's just sort of been about like putting myself in situations that aren't very comfortable. But it's because I want to do that thing, I have no other choice. And so it's just about like getting out of your own way, being open to learning. That's, I think, a big thing. I think I read something recently that was like something along the lines of, the more I learn in cyber, the less I know. And it's so true. I mean, you can use that in tech. Like, it's the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know the breadth of it. Like, there's so
Right.
much. And so, if you are always willing to learn, then that's gonna give you one up. And then I think it's important, in whatever field you're in, is to just be like a kind person. If there's one thing that I always tell people that I might mentor, is just be nice. Like, people will be more willing to, I shouldn't say nice, because kind and nice are not the same thing. Be kind. Be kind. And it really goes a long way. But you couple that with sort of, not being scared and getting out of your own way and just sort of going for it, it's going to give you a lot of leeway. And that's my 2 cents.
I love that you draw that distinction there between kind and nice, because I think there is definitely a line separating the two.
Yeah.
And it's good for women in particular to be conscious of that. Natasha, what about you? Advice for women considering getting into tech, thinking about it?
Yeah, I would say know your environment and go where you're most valued. Understanding what you bring to the table, what you have to offer, and who needs those skills the most. I think leveraging your skills, your experience, those are the things that are going to lead you to, I don't want to call it the easy path, but the one with least resistance. And be brave. As Alex said, like, just do it. I think a lot of times that we get caught up in our own heads. No one's physically stopping you. No one's saying that you can't apply for this job, or that you can't go work in this company, or you can't make this career change and you can't do more. It took me a very long time. Oh man, I'm almost ashamed to say, like, it was only, in my later years that I realized that, I don't have to do the thing that that somebody else in my past told me that I had to do with my career. I can choose for myself. Right. And at the end of the day, I have to live this life. No one else has to. So you have to make that choice to go after the things that are going to be satisfying, that are going to challenge you, that are going to make you feel fulfilled. And don't apologize for it. Just go out there. And as Alex said, like, be kind, right? Don't be afraid to say, like, to ask for help, or to sit down and have a conversation with somebody if you don't know something. Make allies, make friends, and do it genuinely. Right. I think people can tell when you're not genuine and you have an agenda. But if you're actually, if you're just naturally curious and, you want to learn more about something, a lot of people out there that are willing to help you, like the audience member that shared that comment before, he's taking notes. I love that. There are so many people out there that are willing to listen to what you have to say, to kind of give you some advice, to talk to you, to give you an opportunity. It's just about opening up and being able to share some of those concerns, say the things that you want, speak it out loud, ask for help, and just be open to new experiences.
In the vein of being kind to people, this is a story that something that happened to me that really resonated. It can be applied for any situation. For me, it happened to be, and I'm sharing this because we're three women here sitting talking, but after my son was born, after my maternity leave was up, I was just in complete angst about going back to work. And I remember I lived in Hoboken at the time, and I left my apartment, and it was just like all of this stress and anxiety, and I was walking to the bus and just passing these people that I had normally passed, weeks before, and just thinking, like, I wonder if any of these people understand what I'm going through right now, like the complete agony that I'm going through. And the answer is you don't, right? You don't know what anyone else is going through. And that's why I'm saying, that can be applied across any situation, whether it's the death of a relative or a friend, or just a really hard day, or the death of a pet, or absolutely anything. But I just want to share that anecdote as a little reinforcer that, being kind costs nothing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't know what other people are going through, men, women, anyone at all. So being kind certainly goes a long way. Natasha, before we wrap up, I want to pass it over to you really quickly, because I wanted to give you a chance to talk about an initiative that we're starting here at INE called Women of INE. Explain a little about what that's about, and kind of why that started.
Absolutely. So, just as we were just talking about, like, what can we do, right? What can people do to help support women in the workplace, women in tech? What we're doing here at INE is giving women that platform, giving them a seat at the table to start to sit and talk and have these conversations and voice their concerns, their opinions, the things that they need, the things that are important to them. So that's something that we'll be starting this month, which I'm super excited about. Just bringing the woman within the industry, within the company together to just talk and start to understand, like, what are these things that are truly driving us, the things that are challenges for us, the biggest obstacles, and figuring out where can we start to make a change within our companies, within the relationships that we have with one another. How can we better support one another, and what we can do to help others better support us.
Awesome. Natasha, thank you. Really quick, Alex, I want to give you a chance to just any final thoughts that you want to to convey to the audience. And I also want to give a plug for Rent the Runway, because we just learned yesterday, actually, that you are with Rent the Runway. And I just want to give a huge plug, because I love Rent the Runway. I think I was one of their customers back in their very early hungry days, and just love the company and had a great experience with them. They do something really cool. And Alice, I just want to give you a chance to talk a little about what Rent the Runway does. So I think It's a really, really great opportunity probably for anybody, but definitely for me as a woman, just with my experience, it was awesome. It helped me in a professional setting. But wanted to turn it over to you to talk a little about Rent the Runway, and then just any final thoughts you wanted to share.
Sure. So Rent the Runway, just an amazing business model. We've come to disrupt the fashion world. It's a platform by which you could, as a member, or even just as a one-off sort of customer, come in and rent either, special occasion garments, dresses for weddings, or do as I do and rent daily garments. It's high-end, very great quality. Designers, very we have exclusive lines as well. And the idea here is really, a closet in the cloud, where it's much more sustainable. You're getting, you could easily get thousands of dollars worth of clothing in a month for a fraction of the cost. It's just an amazing company. There's nobody else doing what we're doing at our scale. We just went public in the fall, which was really exciting for us. And there's so much more to come. In terms of last thoughts, I just want to say, it's been a great ride, as a woman in tech. And it's not to, this wasn't like a male bashing session or anything like that, but it's just really important for us to voice, our realities and our challenges that are real life. And like I said before, we just want a seat at the table. And it's a really exciting time. I think a lot's happened with the pandemic, in a lot of different ways. I'm super optimistic. And I really appreciated this chat. Thank you so much for having me. But yeah, I think we should keep the conversation going.
Awesome. And we certainly will. Natasha, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. And I know you both have busy days. I appreciate you carving out about an hour to spend with us here on INE Live.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Catherine. And it was such a pleasure to sit with both of you ladies and just have this conversation. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Let's keep it going.
We will, to Alex's point, we will keep the conversation going. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.
With that, we are going to wrap up today's stream. Thank you for watching. If you missed it live, you can look for the replay across our social media channels as well as on the INE Live website. We will be live again right here 1 week from today, next Tuesday, March 8th, for an exciting stream on a new partnership between INE and Black Girls in Cybersecurity. We're teaming up with the organization. Next week, we're going to spotlight Black Girls in Cybersecurity, sit down, talk to them about what they do, about some opportunities they're creating, and about how the partnership between INE and Black Girls in Cyber is fostering new opportunities for both students and enterprises alike. Again, that is next Tuesday, 1 week from today, March 8th at 1 o'clock Eastern. Be sure to like and subscribe on the social media platform you're using today so that you can stay in the loop and get details and notifications when we do go live. As always, be prepared to bring your engagement, your questions, your enthusiasm, and your curiosity. We'll see you next time. Until then, have a great week.